is love in this place. Whenever two or more are of us gathered in His name, I thought the world is all the same.
Good evening. Welcome to another interesting episode of Level Up Your Marriage with Paul and Raquel Blake out of Jamaica. We are indeed happy to be here with you this evening to share with you on all things marriage. We invite you to spend the next hour with us as we discuss another interesting topic on marriage and relationships. Welcome, Raquel.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. We are going to be talking about daily habits that strengthen marriage, and of course, who doesn't want to strengthen his or her marriage? But as the saying goes, strong marriages are not built on occasional moments, but it takes consistent daily effort, intentional practices. And so we are going to be delving into that this evening, and we invite you to join the conversation. And we look forward to you putting your comments, your questions in the chat as we jump right in.
Yes.
So, Paul, how would you like to begin this evening?
Well, I'm trying to remember a particular saying. I can't even remember exactly what it says, but it goes something like a habit is a habit. And if you have it, I don't remember the rest of it. But
I have to ask her. I don't know that one.
I think I probably heard that most probably from Brother Powell or somebody with that. But habits are good and habits are bad. You can have positive habits, you can have negative habits.
True.
We want to look at this evening the positive habits, right? Habits that help to strengthen marriages. And as you started out saying that strong marriages are not built on occasional moments, but really through consistency and intentionality. Marriages don't become successful by default. We have to be always working at it, and it is really the things that we do daily, short and long term, that will allow us to experience harmony, peace, joy, and all of that good stuff in our marriages. So daily habits, Raquel, help to shape us emotionally, spiritually, and helps us to have a healthy relationship. And so those things are important. I remember some time ago we in one of our discussions I think we were discussing the fact that if well, a lot of persons who do coaching and counseling and so forth will say or will agree that habits are formed over a 90-day period, that if you do something consistently for about 90 days, that it will eventually become a habit.
Right.
And I guess it's not necessarily 90 days that they are focusing on necessarily, but the consistency of
True.
doing something. And that can go whichever way. You start out with something that is very bad, and you do it consistently, it becomes a part of you.
Yes.
And the flip side of that is also true, that if you start something that is positive, that over time it also becomes a part of you. And we understand this in our everyday lives, but somehow we kind of miss it when it comes to our relationships, or especially our marriages. That the same consistency that we give to things that interest us, or that we will benefit from it somehow, we tend to do a lot, or go over time to give attention to those things. And oftentimes we don't necessarily take the same approach when it comes to our relationships, we kind of expect them to be successful by default. Along the wayside, everything becomes what it is supposed to be, and it really doesn't work like that. It really
No.
doesn't work like that at all.
I'm reminded of it's a joke, but it's a I guess it's a good it's a lighthearted thing, but I think it might be relevant here, where I think you or others have said that when couples get married, and on the wedding day you say I love you, and but if you never say I love you for the rest of the marriage,
Yes.
um, it doesn't work like that. It
Yeah.
has to be consistent daily effort, daily demonstration of the love, and also where you say it, it's verbalized.
Yes.
So yes, I might know that you love me, or you might know that I love you, but it's important to say it. It's
Yeah.
important. It's important for daily expressions, daily habits that build the relationship, that increase the connection. And so it's not only important for you to know that I love you, or that you love me. It's important also for it to be demonstrated, for
Yes.
us to do things, for us to say things, for us to plan things, to ensure that the connection remains, to ensure that the love continues to grow.
True.
So I guess if you might can share it in a better way. But the idea is that if I tell you that I love you on the wedding day, some people say, don't expect me to tell you every day that I love you. You must know by now. That's
Yes.
why I married you in the first place. But it
Yes.
really doesn't work like that.
Yeah, Jesus says in Luke 16:10, and even though the context may be different, but I believe the application is relevant. It says, if you this is Luke 16:10, if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And
Yeah.
I want to, in terms of the application, the focus on little things, because one of the issues that you'll hear a lot of couples with when it comes to their relationships, especially those that extend over a long term, is that somewhere along the line, the things become things that should be easy become very difficult. And you mentioned saying I love you. Um, if and based on what the text says, if you start off with small things and you do small things consistently, then over time those small things become a part of you and become something that it's second nature to who you are.
Yes.
But if you don't do it, then it becomes more difficult to fall into that habit over a period of time. And eventually, if time passes long enough, then eventually it just is not, it's just something that really doesn't happen at all. And so when we look at habits in daily habits in marriage, we are suggesting that we start off with the small things and be consistent with the small things. Because Raquel, sometimes we get it into our heads, into our space, that marriage becomes better when we it's almost as if there's a textbook formula, and even with the best manual, if you are not consistently doing things, I mean, there are so many books written on marriage and relationships, and so many books written about better in your relationships. And with all of the thousands and millions of books that are there, if you make no use of those books or anything like that, it still won't change. And so, starting off with these habits, and we're going to um, discuss them and how they affect our relationship. One of the first ones, if you know, is intentional connection, right? And I think this one is probably, well, not the most important one, but I probably would say that it is right at the top of the list.
Hmm.
And why I would say that is the daily hustle and bustle of life, where we often say that life is life in. And as far as I know, life doesn't stop lifing, right?
Never.
Life goes on. And if we don't stop to connect, then we are going to lose ourselves in the process and lose our partners also. And so the intentional daily connection is very important. Being present and not just available, because it I think it is easy to be available, but you don't necessarily have to be present.
All right. True, because we might be sitting at the table, and you have used the example before, where you have seen persons that go out, they're sitting at the table. Should be having a conversation, and wife is on the phone, husband is on the phone, and they're sitting together.
Yeah, they're
So
present.
they're
Yeah,
present,
they're present,
you know.
but there no
But they're not.
connection,
The
no
connection is
connection
there.
is being
Yeah.
made.
So they're physically close to each other, but in terms of the emotional connection, it's far from it. So this intentionality where couples set out, they put it in their calendar, have it on their minds, they're looking forward to it, they're orchestrating something, they're tickled and excited about being that intentional connection,
Yeah.
and it can be done in several different ways, in the hustle and bustle, 10 minutes or and when we talk about daily, we brush our teeth every day, we have a meal every day.
Hopefully.
And so I guess one practical example then is, probably have an undistracted meal. You decide to sit at the table with the family, or husband and wife decide to put away the phones,
Or must have an intentional
or have an
conversation.
intentional conversation, or at an end of day
Even
debrief.
because even before you talk about home, um, in today's modern world, we find that a lot of couples, uh, either one works outside of the home, or most times both of them work outside of the homes. Um, Also, even in the work environment, sometimes if you live in a place like Jamaica, it is very easy for one spouse to work on one side of the island and the other one work on the other side of the island. If you look at even our own lives, we wake up at 4:30 every morning, have to drop off Tim to school. You work one
Work.
area, I work in another area. In that space of time, Raquel, there are several things happening in between those hours when you leave home and you're at work. It depending on the environment that you work in, it is easy to get lost in your job, because if you have a boss that is demanding and you have tasks that are very demanding, it is easy to lose yourself in all of that. And if you are not careful, you don't remember your spouse until it is time to go home. Right? And it is not suggesting that you're not concerned about your spouse. It is the fact that it is the reality of life.
True.
It is what is happening, which means that you have to intentionally slow down. You have to intentionally make the time to connect with your spouse. And it doesn't mean that you're going to take your entire lunch hour to talk to your spouse, right? Because connection can happen in different ways. One of the examples just this week, when you and I were at work, and I remember I sent you three crazy videos. Because I think I was on TikTok, and I just came across a particular video, and I was in my office dying with laughter. Right? If anybody who was passing and heard me in that office think that I was in there with a whole audience, but I was in there alone. But in my mind, I said, but if I find this video so funny, I am sure Raquel is going to find this video funny also.
Exactly.
So I sent the video to you, and I think I found two other videos. And what I remember is that in when you message me back, what your message was that this is just what I needed, right? And that when we talk about being intentional, we're talking about stuff like that. So it's not anything that is textbook, right? It is just simply allowing your spouse to understand that I am thinking about you, right? And I'm not just going to, put off everything, and we pick up where we left off after work is done, right? And that is how I think a lot of people end up losing each other in the relationship.
Right. And then you see the point. And then when the video that you sent, because you know that I love to laugh, you know that I like a good joke. So it also makes a difference, the kind of information that is shared based on what you know about me or based on what I know about you. So I was in a ladies session, and I was sharing that with them that this week you sent me some jokes because you know that I like to laugh and we like a good joke. So I was saying that you shared it with me, and now we're saying so it's also the content or what is shared should also fuel or send a message that I understand you. I know that you, in the middle of the day, you like a good joke, or in the middle of the day, sometime with the demands of work,
Yes.
then you would appreciate something that some humor. And so the content or the information that you shared also makes a difference, because it
So
says it
so the
says to you that
check-in,
you're thinking of
yeah,
me,
the check-in
but it
is
also says
important.
that I know
Yes.
that you would love this because you
Yes,
love to
that's
smile
right.
or you
That's
like the
right.
humor.
That's right.
You know.
So the check-in is important. The end of the debriefing is important. And it's interesting that for those of us who have children, and especially if you have multiple children, we like to debrief with our children at the end of the day, because we like to hear what craziness went on at school, and all things, what the friends did and what the friends didn't do, and all of that. And I think we kind of take pleasure in debriefing our children, but oftentimes we don't take the same approach when it comes to our spouses. The period of debriefing, which is important. uh, I think probably women tend to do it a lot more than men in terms of debriefing. um, Usually when you ask men how was your day, you probably get a two-word or a one sentence. Right? You ask your wife to debrief, you probably get a whole hour. but
Well,
but it is what it is. But I believe that period of conversation, debriefing, that connection is very important.
yeah, yeah, and just to add that, as you said, sometimes the husband might give you two words, but it all depends on maybe when the question is asked.
Yeah,
So it's important. The timing is also important.
yeah.
And similarly for the wife, she might give you 1,000 words, but you might not be in the space to listen at that time. So as we're talking about, intentional connections and um, practical examples, it's also important that we are mindful of the timing of it,
Yeah,
and also the different personalities,
that's right. True.
because in some marriages, the end of the debriefing is the norm for some
Yeah,
people, while for others it might be something different.
yeah. True,
So it's
true.
important that
And
each
the
couple.
kind of job that you have might
Right.
also play on that, because take for instance a teacher who has to deal with children all day might not be the best person in terms of debriefing, because that person may just want to come home and be silent for a little bit
Right.
before any kind of debriefing
Debriefing.
takes place. But just imagine another person who works on a computer every day, without any human connection. That person may be dying to just go home and have a connection with somebody who is alive.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so there are several things to consider, but that period of connection is very, very important. Another one we can look at too is healthy daily communication, and I think this connects with the first point that we just made,
Yes.
that effective communication really speaks about listening, and it's not just listening, but what we want to call active listening, and that is listening to understand, rather than just simply to respond, whether defensively or with explanation, right? Because I find that this is not necessarily a marriage problem. I think it's a human problem,
Yes, true.
that we often listen with the intention to either
To respond.
fix or to respond, to correct or to defend, and not just to listen to understand. And I think, when the more I deal with persons, even in counseling sessions, especially dealing with couples, and it is sometimes so very difficult to get them to listen to each other, right? Because everybody comes to the session with, especially if it is a case where you're trying to repair a broken relationship, everybody wants their point of view to come across, and everybody sees their point of view as the most important aspect of getting this thing rectified. And so nobody is really prepared to listen. And even in our everyday experiences as couples, this can be a problem if we are not very careful. That we need, I think we need to learn how to listen, right? To actively listen, to process what you think you hear, because again, like Raquel, sometimes what we think we hear is not what the message that has been sent either.
You know.
And so listening is important.
Yes, and definitely. And if something is not clear, rather than jump into conclusion, just ask a question, seek to clarify. Because in marriage, and in many relationships, or most relationships, the conversations are powerful, and they build trust, and people need a safe space, an
Yes.
emotional safe space, to be heard, to be appreciated. And couples, husbands and wife, should remember this, that
Yes,
they're on the
true.
same side. But then also, wives want to feel that they can depend on or trust their husbands, to feel emotionally safe.
Yeah, true,
you know
true.
it's something that probably, as you said, couples who might be married for a number of years, they forget,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't appreciate this point, that so that's why having the healthy daily communication make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
Because you want to know that, I can feel safe around you, you can feel safe around me, and that I can share my deepest thought, and my deepest concerns.
Yes. James says in James chapter 1, verse 19,
Mm-hmm.
understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must be you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and
Yes.
slow to anger.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I love the first part when he says you must be quick to
To
listen
listen.
and slow to speak.
Oh,
And I
oh,
think these are words of wisdom that in our connection, in our communication, that listening is of utmost importance. And as we said, just not just listening, but active listening. In our some of our previous discussions, I would have also said that anybody who has two ears can hear. If you have two working ears,
you hear.
you are bound to hear and hear clearly. But being able to hear does not equate to listening.
Yeah.
Right? Hearing and listening are two totally different things, because listening has to do with being able to, one, process the information that you have heard, and respond in a way that is going to be beneficial to the person who is speaking, and also to give you clarity. Right? And I find that in marriage, it is one of the habits that is often very absent. And a lot of times, what brings people to counseling for marriage, marital counseling, is lack of communication. And
Yeah,
much of this lack of communication has to do with people not listening,
and
right?
a lot of misunderstandings,
Lot of
and then
misunderstanding. There's a whole heap of talking going on, right? I mean, there's talking for days, right? But it doesn't mean that you're listening, right?
yes. So talking can be one-sided,
That's
but
right.
communication involves two
Yeah,
persons, and
true.
so it's an important distinction, because you might be talking, you might be ranting, you might be, but I'm just doing my thing.
And yeah,
I'm just
and
doing
on
my
the
thing.
and there, I'd also say that there's nothing that breaks down a relationship than someone in a relationship feeling that they are not being heard,
True.
right? Even with the whole heap of conversation that is taking place, if you are not being heard, then it's going to cause frustration, it's going to cause anger, it's going to cause disappointment, it's going to cause a whole lot of other emotions that will eventually erode the relationship. And so listening, as James says, be quick to listen, and slow to speak. Very meaningful conversations, Raquel, help to strengthen trust and emotional safety. And I kind of like, because here's another point, Raquel. In Even in our listening and communication, we oftentimes don't know really what a conversation is supposed to sound like. What a conversation is supposed to be like. Uh, do you know that there are persons who think that quarreling is a conversation?
They do. They are.
That
And
when you are at loggerheads with each other, I mean, how we are socialized and cultured is a strange thing. That's a conversation is not talking at each other. It is not quarreling. A conversation is two people communicating with each other, where both are able to respect each other, your point of view, respect your differences, respect even your belief system sometimes, because we don't always share the same kind of belief systems about everything. And so a conversation is important. I think that even as couples, we have to determine what our conversations are going to be like. Even while we're dating, what kind of conversations are we going to have? How our conversations are going to sound?
you
All
know
of those things are important.
yes, that's so true. And you made such an important point earlier, where some persons believe that having a quarrel is a they're having a conversation. And of course, sometimes that might have been learned. They might have noticed it in
The
their own,
learned response.
yeah, in their family of upbringing, or from some person or that they saw as an example or role
Yes.
model. So it's important for discussion, it's important for clarification.
Yeah.
And of course, as we talk about having these daily conversation, in those daily conversations, the element of sharing how you're feeling,
Yes.
expressing using I statements. I statements are better than you statements,
Mm-hmm.
because I statements, when someone uses an I statement, then he or she is taking responsibility for what's coming next for the rest of the sentence.
Yeah.
I feel happy that you are listening to me, or as opposed to you never listen to me, or you're always talking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we mention that in these conversations, someone should feel safe to express a need, or express a disagreement, or to share how they're feeling.
Yes, I agree.
You know.
And even in communication too, Raquel, we a lot of times when we, many couples and especially men fear the word communication, because communication, when a lot of times when wives talk about communication, is usually when things go wrong. But when we only associate some things with certain some words with certain actions, it becomes a problem.
Yes.
Because communication in a relationship goes both ways. You can communicate about things that are not going as well as they should be, but communication ought to be something that comes naturally, where you talk about just about anything, right? When you are having light moments in your relationship and you laugh and talk together, that's communication. It's not just about the hard stuff, right?
Exactly.
And how, what we should be fixing and all of that. But conversation is something that is supposed to be ongoing. And the more conversations we have together, it's the easier it becomes for us to communicate even through difficult things.
So how would you answer then? Or what would be your advice to someone who says that we only communicate when something is wrong?
Well,
Because that's a valid point that you made earlier, where
mhm.
persons think that when they're gonna have the hard conversation, that's the time that they're communicating the regular day-to-day stuff and the laughter, the light stuff. They don't see that as
the,
communication.
the,
So
the the
how
first thing that the
how would you
first thing
answer
that
such a
you the
question?
first thing that you have to do is to find out why that communication is not taking place in the first place. Why is that conversation not happening? And sometimes again, there are myriad of things that can cause that. Sometimes in a relationship we don't take the time, Raquel, to find out what are our different communication styles. We often take it for granted that because we're in a relationship, we love each other, then communication may come naturally. And that's not true. Oftentimes in a relationship with husband and wives, both of them don't communicate the same way. Most times, 90% of the times, they don't communicate the same way.
True.
And even men don't communicate the same way as women, and women don't communicate the same way as men. We have two different modes of communication. And even if we have some similarities, it's not usually the same way. And so I honestly believe that a part of getting over this communication barrier is that we have to find out how we communicate in terms of our spouses, right? Uh, would it be also fair to say that even sometimes we don't even understand how we communicate, much less understanding how our
I was
spouses
about to say
communicate?
that too. I was about to say that too, because some you might ask, a wife might say, "Okay, my dear, let's talk about how do you communicate? What's your communication style? What's this, so on and so on." And sometimes they might not receive an answer,
That's
or
right.
it might take a few days before an answer come. you know, and so it's so important that it's a daily effort. As you said, even during courtship, that this matter of communication and breaking it down and
Hmm.
having an understanding. And also sometimes you might say, okay, when you were a child, or when in your family of upbringing, how was it?
Oh, was
How
it?
did
Yeah.
how did communication take place, or what did you notice, what did you observe? Because that helps.
Yes.
And then also it would also help to bring understanding, so that you can challenge
That's right.
those habits, or those communication habits that doesn't work for your relationship.
So I guess one of the challenges that we could put out to our audience is to find out what communication pattern
Yes.
do we need to improve, right?
Yes,
What
true.
what what? Because I think that all of us who are married people know, we know that no relationship is perfect. No relationship is going to be 100%. And as we go along, we need to improve on certain aspects. So I want to challenge the audience. What communication pattern do you need to improve with your spouse? Right? That's a challenge for you this week. What communication pattern do you need to improve? Another one, Raquel, prayer, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because this is the last level up we did. We spent
The
a
previous
whole
one
hour
talking about.
speaking about the power of praying couples, but prayer is also very important. Praying consistently together, because again, we're talking about marriage from a Christian perspective, and we believe in the power of prayer. Believe that power, that prayer changes things. God has given us this awesome avenue of communication with Him, where we can, communicate our thoughts, our feelings with Him and with our spouses. What we can't do for ourselves in our relationship, if well,
And
God
surely
can, God
God can.
can, and He asks us to communicate with Him in that area. You
Yeah.
know.
And you talk about praying together consistently,
Hmm.
praying together consistently. It's three words, praying together consistently. And of course, couples who don't necessarily pray together consistently can give themselves a challenge too.
Yes,
Okay? They'll
true.
say, let us try to pray together consistently for a week.
Hmm.
And it's because the prayers don't have to be long. They can be short, sincere prayers, that now will begin to increase the level of communication,
Hmm.
increase the level of intimacy, and even just the peace that is at work in the home.
Yes, true.
So, but the element is that it has to be consistent. So you can say, okay, my darling husband, let us, if it's not something that is already a habit,
Yes.
let us give ourselves a challenge every day for 7 days, just before bed, or just before getting up in the mornings. And you'll experience the joy that comes from doing that, because everybody, Christians and non-Christians, understand the power of prayer.
That's right. True.
Christians and non-Christians understand that prayer, it reduces emotional distance.
Hmm.
It binds people together.
Yes. Keep
And
our hearts aligned,
yes,
aligned
yes,
with God. Keeps us humble,
true,
because it is that communication with God that allows us to remember that it is, at the end of the day, it's God who is in control of
true,
everything.
correct,
Our
correct.
our actions are not, are not our own. It's God who gives us direction. God who, because in our prayers, we have to be willing also to empty ourselves of our arrogance, our the bad habits that we talked about before,
Hmm.
because we really can't bring that to God, in His presence.
Yes, and then
So it keeps us grounded,
right,
right?
and the element of not going to bed. Don't let the sun go down
Don't
on
let
your
the sun
wrath.
go down on your wrath, right?
So where there are
That's
disagreements or misunderstandings, taking it to God in prayer will definitely aid in the
yes,
reconciliation, in the unity when there's division.
yes. The next one, Raquel, is one that I found interesting. Last week, I received a WhatsApp message from a gentleman who heard one of the programs that Brother Kidu and myself do on the radio station, and the particular program that he requested was one. I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but it is along the line of showing appreciation and affirming your spouse.
Hmm.
And I remember, he said that he was listening and he found that very, very interesting. And as a matter of fact, his request was that we do more. We do some more of those programs. As a matter of fact, the gentleman called Brother Kido and said that a lot of the things that we were discussing are things that he has never heard before.
Oh,
And he has been married for quite a while. And he
okay.
said that he found that particular program interesting. So affirmation and appreciation, Raquel, is a habit that can pay wonderful dividends in marriage, right? It is our words, and our word bank is our word bank, is supposed to be full of positive words, good words towards our spouses. Encouragement, giving your spouse encouragement and appreciation, uh, showing them that they are worthy and worth it, is another element that is often very much missing from our relationships.
So you while I was preparing, and you made the point about the gentleman who asked for the to hear the additional information about the
Hmm.
program, and for him he found it very useful because I guess he didn't hear hasn't heard a lot of information like that. But you also have other persons who say, I don't know how to use words to build up my spouse. Why do I need to build up my spouse? persons persons say that either that they don't know, or why should they do it? Because let's look at a practical example where um more and more persons are understanding the value of saying thank you. Thank you
Hmm.
for, most people would probably practice thank you for dinner, or thank you for persons don't say thank you for taking care of the family, or thank you for bringing the income. That's a given.
Hmm.
But it's still also one of those points that the research is showing that when wives verbally say to their husbands, thank you for taking care of the family, or thank you for bringing in the income, that it helps. It boosts his ego. um that the happy hormone that we talk about from time to
Hmm.
time, it helps. But some persons are of the view that, why should I be thanking my spouse for to doing that, because that is his responsibility? Or why should I thank my wife for taking care of the home, or um making the bed, or things like that? So the
I
element
I
of
would
using words to build up,
I would ask only one question when to my I heard,
what would you
if I
say?
hear somebody with that, and I've heard it before,
Yeah, we have heard
right?
before.
So if I'm going to say to you, Raquel,
Hmm.
why should I be thanking you for taking care of the home? Then why do I need to hear thank you for bringing in
The income.
the income?
Hmm.
Why do I need to hear that then? Because I guarantee that the minute I'm not hearing that, is going to be a problem.
Right. And so so that's why the point is relevant, that in the same way we can understand when a meal is set at the table, you say thank you for my meal, or thank you for dinner, or the fact that even we pray, and we pray a grace and a prayer that says thank God for the meal, so on, and you say thanks, or we encourage our children to say thanks.
Hmm.
So the principle is relevant right across the board.
We take so much for granted that is amazing, because even in the realm of affirmation and appreciation, do you realize that sometimes outside of our relationships we do these things so very naturally, especially in our workplaces?
Or and other places.
We tell the people who are working with us, we tell them thank you, with excuse please. um, all of these things come so very naturally to us outside of our relationships, but when it comes to our relationships, often we take it for granted, because a lot of times we take the position that my spouse should know,
Well, similar to what I started
right?
earlier at the beginning.
But
It doesn't work like that, and so it's important now that to understand that practicing appreciation and affirmation is healthy.
yeah,
It's good medicine, and guess what? It's something that is free. It's cheap.
yeah.
It's free. Let me say, free is a better word. It's free.
And but Raquel, what isn't it true though that one of the reasons why a lot of people find it so difficult to give affirmation and to show how much we appreciate what others do for us, is because we don't do it enough. And because it is not something that we do often, when we do it, it's almost as if it has been forced. It's a forced thing. It's difficult. It's like pulling teeth. But if this is something that we practice from the onset and it becomes a part of us, it is really second nature. It's not something that you find difficult. As a matter of fact, I've come across many times, even in our conversations. I remember um, many years ago, I think you and I we were at some kind of church event, and I believe that I think you brought me lunch or something, and I said thank you. And there was somebody standing beside me who looked at me in a very strange way, as if, why do you have to tell your wife thank you to bring you lunch? And for me, it was the most natural thing to do because it is something that we have been doing from day one,
Hmm.
right? But for that other person, it was strange because evidently they are not used to that kind of thing, right?
Right.
So again, if we begin to practice these things from the onset and it becomes a part of us, then it really becomes our natural response to what is happening in our relationship.
Right. And then, I guess the opposite is also true, that many persons use words to to
To
break,
break, to
to
destroy.
destroy.
Yes.
And that is something that almost everybody can relate to, or they have seen it, or they have heard it, or they have experienced it. And so, we are declaring, we are saying that it's important now to begin to use more words
True,
to build
true.
up the relationship, to build up the individual. We are declaring and encouraging more persons, more couples, more individuals to um to understand the power of words and use words to build up, use words to encourage, use words to motivate,
Yes.
because affirmation and words of appreciation
Yes.
definitely
Find some
find,
gratitude statements,
yeah, they
create,
meet emotional
yes,
needs.
create, and your gratitude statements don't have to look like everybody else's own. You can, and that is a unique thing about marital relationships, that the things that drive one couple is not the same thing that's going to drive another couple.
Hmm.
So you create your own daily gratitude statements and your affirmations, and you have your weekly affirmation check-ins and all and those things. And it doesn't have to look like everybody else. It can be something that is unique to both of you. And that I believe that is one of the things that makes life so interesting.
Yes, and then it's important to also let the children witness this happening.
Yes, true.
Other persons who are considering marriage, let them see it happening, because it's an important part of the future. It's an important part of the legacy
Hmm.
that couples are leaving um for the future.
Yes. Remember, if you want to have dialogue with us, please type in the chat. If you have a question or a comment, please type in the chat and let us, acknowledge you. It's a dialogue we're having. It's a conversation. We really want to hear from you and hear your thoughts. So moving on, we can talk about also choosing grace and forgiveness daily. In this crazy world that we live in, Raquel, it is important to learn to give each other
Yes,
grace.
definitely.
Right? Everything does not have to be a discussion and a quarrel. Um, Everything does not have to throw us into the tailspin of confusion. Right? We need to learn how to give each other grace. Everything does not deserve a response. Even sometimes when we do things that naturally upset our spouses, and or vice versa, it doesn't always deserve a response. My grandmother used the term that sometimes we have to allow peace to reign, and that is true.
Hmm.
We say that in church every day. That if we be If we respond to everything or react to every single thing in church, we will be running a virtual madhouse. And the same thing applies to our relationships, that everything doesn't have to become a point of discussion. Everything doesn't have to become a bone of contention. We have to learn to give each other grace. Sarah, how are you doing? Uh, Great advice. Raj and I try to be deliberate in being grateful for each other and not to take things for granted. That's very, very interesting. Very wonderful statement. Yeah. We lose each other when we take each other for granted.
True.
It's one of the easiest things to fall into that space where we just expect things to be. It has always been this way. So I expect that when I come home, dinner is going to be cooked and all of that, because that's what I expect. And the minute I come home one evening and dinner is not cooked, it's World War III. Right? And you don't even ask a question how you feel, because probably the reason why the dinner is not cooked, you may have felt tired, you may be sick or something,
Or some other emergency.
or you might just not feel to do it. Right?
Right, and that's why as you take it a step further, if you were not the type to say thank you,
Yeah.
then certainly
Yes.
it adds to the fury.
Yes, taking each other for granted is one of those things that will destroy your relationship. So I thank you, Sarah, for saying that. Be deliberate about being grateful. The small things. A lot of times we are only appreciative when we get a nice gift and when something big happens.
And
But
Valentine's Day
Valentine's Day next week, and you get a bunch of roses and all of that. But the everyday things that we should be thankful for. Get going home and your spouse makes you a cup of tea, or even ask if you need a cup of tea. You might not even want it, but just the fact that he or she asks you if you need a cup of tea shows that they are thinking of you, right? And that is important. So yeah, be grateful, and don't take each other for granted. Give each other grace and forgiveness. Is very important. Conflicts, Raquel, are a part of life. As long as we live in this world, we are going to have conflicts. The godliest couple in this world will have conflicts.
Right, so
But
don't allow anybody to fool you.
yes,
that Christians
don't have conflict. We live on easy street, and the Lord is just with us. But even Jesus had conflict with his disciples. Right?
But he handled it with grace and forgiveness.
With grace and forgiveness.
Yes.
I don't think that there was anybody who had more conflicts with Jesus than Peter. I mean, Peter is just
he was hot-headed.
he was one of those disciples I think Jesus had to just pull in line so many times. But Jesus always treated Peter with grace. Even when Jesus was correcting Peter for some flaw that he had, he did it with grace.
Yeah, and Peter, God showed him grace and forgiveness, and he kept his dignity.
That's right.
He felt dignified even after being corrected, or
That's
even
right.
after being forgiven.
Yes. Yeah. So show each other grace and forgiveness. Learn how to work through conflicts. Learn how to resolve conflicts. Learn what is the art of forgiveness. I keep hearing this statement from couples that they can forgive, but
They'll never forget.
they'll never forget. That is not forgiveness. That's not forgiveness. I learned something about forgiveness some years ago, because I really had a struggle with that idea of forgiving and not forgetting, because my human mind said to me that, is it really possible for us as human beings to forget? And I think I was listening to some program on forgiveness. I think it was a preacher I was listening to, and he explained that idea of forgetting in a very wonderful way, and it's something that still stick with me today. When he said that, yes, forgiveness is the thing that you are working through, and how forgetting works is that as you work through the situation, if you have truly forgiven the person, when you do recall the event, you don't think of it in the same way. So, in other words, he said, if today you are working through something with somebody where forgiveness is concerned, and you feel bitter today, the fact that you are working through it, if the same thought comes to you tomorrow, the same level of bitterness that you would have felt yesterday, you don't have it tomorrow. And as time goes by, you find that you become less and less bitter until it just dissolves,
Yes.
or disappears. Or even if it comes up in your thought, you don't feel the same way you felt about it before. And I found that interesting, because sometimes we give the impression that you must just put it out of your head, and humanly, I don't think that's possible. But in terms of forgetting, though, the idea of, as you work through it, you feel less apprehension, you feel less bitterness, less hatred, less reservation as you work through the situation, until eventually you just don't even think about it.
Right.
Right.
Because I guess there would have been restoration and reconciliation
That's
and
right.
healing.
Right. When you find yourself in the presence of that person, you know your blood pressure don't go up anymore. That's right. And you don't start sweating and pulsating and all of
Yes.
that. And you find that you are able now to even have a conversation with this person, because you're learning how to move past it. And the same idea with your spouse. Sometimes our spouses will do things that will probably make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And it may be difficult to work through it in the moment, but because you love this person and you are able to give them grace, then you come to that place where you just really have to work through it, and work through it to the point where you can now come back and show your spouse the same love and appreciation that you would have had for them in the beginning.
Yes. I want to add that couples should develop some kind of a mindset or a strategy where they agree that if there is a disagreement, or let me rephrase, when there is a disagreement,
Yeah, when there's a disagreement.
when there's a disagreement, to say, okay, we will work to have the conversation, have more understanding within 2 days, because you don't want to extend the period of emotional distance and so on. So if you agree during those good times when there's no disagreement, that we have an approach that when there's a disagreement, when there's a challenge, when there's a conflict, then we are agreeing that within 2 days we are going to be sitting down, we're going to be processing it, working it through, to make sure that there's clarification. Because if you leave it
Yes,
unresolved,
don't
you're gonna
avoidance. Don't practice the avoidance thing.
exactly.
Deal with it, even when it becomes uncomfortable, because sometimes it is in the discomfort that you find the solution.
Right, but there has to be a
There has
willingness
to be a willingness.
to talk it through or to deal with it. And the idea is that if you leave it for too long, it fester and
Yes,
resentment builds and so on. So
yes, and then one issue becomes another issue on top of another issue.
yes, so if 2 days
Eventually,
might not be, I mean, we know in different circumstances, 2 days might be too short. But the idea is that there must be some minimum time
make a
that you are
decision that you
resolving,
are going to
agreeing to
work through.
work
To
through
work
this
through it.
for the betterment of the relationship.
That's right. Wonderful. Wow, we are
Our
almost
time is
out of
upon
time.
us. Yes.
We have had a very, very good discussion. We could talk about Raquel setting healthy boundaries as another thing that we should do. You know, guarding your relationship from external threats. Having boundaries to protect your love, and not to restrict each other where our freedoms are concerned. Right, being emotionally available, and this again is a choice. It's a
Yes.
choice that you make. Guarding your conversations, and and your confidences. I honestly believe that one of the things that we must practice as couples, there are some things, there are some conversations that only belong to couples, that nobody else must be privy to, right? I honestly also believe, Raquel, that even in our communication, we need to have a language of communication that only you and I understand, right? That, even if you're in a forum where you're having a conversation where you're not, that you're not supposed to be having, that your spouse can probably give you a look and you know that you're not supposed to be having that conversation, and it doesn't, and nobody recognizes that it happens, but it is part it, and that's what makes communication so great. A language that only you and your spouse
No, I
understands.
understand. Correct.
That's right.
So we have been talking about daily habits that strengthen marriages, and of course we spoke about the intentional daily connection. Yes,
Yes.
we spoke about daily communication. So one C was connection,
Connection,
another C was
communication.
communication,
Hmm.
and the third one that includes a C is
Choosing grace.
no, praying
Oh,
together
praying together. Yes. Praying
consistently,
together consistently.
and of course the matter of using um words to build up
Yes.
appreciation and affirmation that builds up your spouse as opposed to destroying or breaking them down. And then the final one, well,
Choosing grace and forgiveness daily.
yes, and of
Yes.
course setting the boundaries. So we hope that we would something that we have said would have sparked, would have energized or prompted you to take another look at your relationship. What are the daily habits that you're practicing? And the challenge that you gave out earlier was that we were to what? They were to do what again?
I don't remember.
To what to assess what
To
communication
assess,
pattern
yes,
needs
assess
to
your
be improved,
communication pattern.
and see what needs to be improved, because you know little efforts, little daily effort, consistent effort make a big difference.
Yes, that's right.
Make a big difference.
All right, we have come to another end of another episode of Level Up Your Marriage. And we were indeed happy to have this discussion tonight. And we invite you to uh, tune into our programs on the first and third Friday of each month. You can email us at levelupyourmarriagecoc at levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com, or you can call us 876-835-6524. That's 876-835-6524, or 876-421-6722. That's 876-421-6722. Until next time, we will see you for another episode of Level Up Your Marriage with Paul and Raquel Blake. God bless.
Take care.
They can never take the love that's in this place.